Hey everybody, welcome back to our series on close reading, and today, Sumos. No, not that kind of sumo. The close reading kind of Sumos. Close reading, if you don't remember, is rereading, second read, to figure out how a text works. You are looking at it, picking it apart. What choices did an author make in order to get their point across most effectively? And today, the acronym Sumos, which is not only a close reading strategy, but also a really good strategy for preparing your own response to a text. I'll talk about how that works right after the theme song. Okay, Sumos, our text to be read closely for this episode is called College May Not Be Worth It Anymore by Ellen Ruppel Shell. It was originally published in the New York Times. I put a link to it down below in the description. I highly recommend. No, I mandate. I order you to pause, go down, click on that link, and read the text. And I want you to keep it open in another tab, in another window while we talk about Sumos and go through the text. Okay, so pause, read, come back. Welcome back. Here are the basics of Sumos. So it starts with what the speaker actually says. Then it begins to dive into what the speaker may have left unsaid. Then what's completely missing, not just what's implied, but what is completely left out. And then what are some outcomes or implications? Like if the author is right, or if we listen to the speaker, what is going to happen? And then the final S there is a so what. It's a personal response. It's your reply, your opinion back at the author after considering all of those things. And I really like this strategy quite a bit because this leads you through what an author is saying, yes, but also to your own opinion about it, your own response. When a teacher says to you, here's the thing, I would like you to read it and I would like you to write a response. This is a perfect strategy to use, Sumos. If the teacher hands you a thing and says, here's the thing, I just want you to close read it, then you might want to stick with smell or close or soapstone. But if you are being asked to respond, like here's an argument, do you agree with it, disagree with it? Here's a text, how does that make you feel? If you're being asked to respond to it, Sumos is a perfect text to do that. Did I say text? I meant graphic organizer. Okay, the S square, the first S square in Sumos, what is the speaker saying? So you're going to look for the claim and you're going to look for some evidence that backs up the claim. So here in College May Not Be Worth It Anymore, you'll notice that at the beginning of the text, Ellen Ruppel Shell does not actually state what her thesis is. These first few paragraphs here at the beginning sort of raise a question. Is college worth it anymore? Now, the headline, the title, kind of gives away what her thesis is. And by the way, I can't remember if I've said this in my other close reading videos. The title itself is never an answer to one of these close reading strategies unless it's specifically asking you about the title, right? So if we're looking for what the author says, we're not going to write down the title. We're going to look for a sentence in the text that she wrote that really states what it is that she's getting at. Now, you might be thinking, how is it possible to not put something like that at the beginning of your text? And what I'll say is that that is a perfectly acceptable technique, where at the beginning of your argument, you say, there is this open question, and there are some possible answers. And if the question is college worth it anymore? The answers are yes, no, or in some situations. So just looking at her words, we don't know at the beginning what her main idea, what her claim, what her thesis is. But if we get to the end of the text, we do actually get a statement. This is in the next to last paragraph, the penultimate paragraph. She says this: for most of us, it's not our education that determines our employment trajectory, but rather where the education positions us in relation to others. What she's saying there is not college good or even college bad. It's, for some people, college doesn't matter. And for other people, college is the only thing that matters. this belief that we have all had for a long time that everybody has to go to college, she says, may not be true. So what is some of Ruppelshell's evidence? I would say that this is full of statistical evidence. If you're thinking about the appeals, the rhetorical appeals, it's full of logos appeals, right? She talks about how only 20 to 25% of jobs actually require a college degree, and about how the United States compares with other countries around the world. The U box in Sumos is for what the writer leaves unsaid. And so this graphic organizer, this acronym, comes with both an unsaid and a missing, and they are different things. And I want you to think about the unsaid. If you've ever been taught anything about something called a warrant, or maybe just the reasoning, that's what we're looking for here in unsaid. It's what is the reasoning or the motivation or the connection behind the claim and the evidence, or how the evidence that an author presents supports the claim. And let me just remind you of the definition of a warrant. A warrant is an assumption or value behind a writer's claim and behind how the evidence supports the claim. And because that's an assumption, it is usually left unsaid. You have to read between the lines of a writer's work in order to figure out, okay, what are the particular morals or values that this writer holds that allows her to connect this evidence to her claim. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that I was going to argue that dogfighting should be banned. I would probably not write a sentence in that argument about dogfighting that says animal cruelty is wrong. Mostly because it's something that I believe, and it's something that I believe most of you, my audience, believes. I don't have to say this assumption out loud. I don't have to state this particular value of mine or of ours out loud. I can leave it unsaid. In the you, in the unsaid, is where we really start getting to the sense that at the end of this exercise, you can respond to what the author is saying, because it's here that you can maybe begin to offer a little bit of criticism, because the unspoken assumption in an author's text might be something that you agree with, but it also might be something that you disagree with. And for this text, college may not be worth it anymore, Ruppelshell seems to be really working from the assumption that the only value of going to college is how it affects your lifetime earnings. Now, I'm saying that skeptically because that's not something that I personally believe. You might believe that. You might say the only reason to go to college is so I can make a lot of money. And if that's what you believe, that's fine. But as I said, I don't. Now, once we've identified that as her value, then we need to provide some evidence. What are the lines that we're reading between that let us see that this is her assumption, that the only reason to go to college is to make more money? Well, with this particular text, you could pretty much throw a dart at it and you're going to land at a line that if you read between it, it says that, money is the only thing. She bases her entire argument on whether or not college is going to increase your income, particularly your income relative to others like you. In paragraph 6, she's comparing the salary of high school graduates to college dropouts. A couple of paragraphs later, in paragraph 8, she compares earning potential of elite to non-elite college graduates. In paragraphs 10 and 11, she talks about the relative post-college earnings of middle-class people and poor people. Paragraph 13 is all about the wage gap between college graduates and non-college graduates. Every piece of evidence that she is presenting here is oriented around the idea that college is only valuable for what it does to your wallet. And you can even get to the end of the text where she says, oh, you know what, I encouraged my children to go to college. Well, yes, she is a middle-class white woman, which means that her children are going to earn, on average, 162% more than non-middle class white peers. Yes, it is obvious that her children would have an advantage going to college. But you'll notice that she never actually says the words. The only reason to go to college is because it will help you earn more money. She never says those words. That's why this is U for unsaid. This is obviously her own value system. This is obviously what she believes. This is the whole reason why she presents all of this evidence related to salary and none of the evidence related to any other possible benefit of college. It's because this is what she believes. She leaves it unsaid though, because she either assumes that you already agree with it, or she doesn't want to end up fighting over whether or not that value is the right value to hold. I mean, it would be pretty easy for me to say, look, I don't care about your statistics. The fact is that you go to college because it helps you to learn more about yourself and about the world. It makes you a more well-rounded person. It makes you better prepared to handle whatever it is that life throws at you. And all of a sudden now, I'm debating her not on the merits of her evidence and her claim, but on the merits of her personal beliefs and opinions. And people don't want to fight about those. People hold their own beliefs and opinions pretty sacred. I mean, that's why they're called beliefs. It's, you know, this is who I am. This is part of my identities. I believe that the best value of college is in what it does for your earning potential. And if I start debating her on a completely different area than just prove my facts wrong, then it becomes a debate that she probably doesn't want to have. That's going to lead us nicely into M for missing. Rather than just being unsaid, there, between the lines, but unsaid, missing is what pieces of the puzzle has an author just not even considered? Who are the voices that are left out of the argument? What are ideas that just would obviously be counter to her own argument, but that she doesn't even begin to consider, that she doesn't stop to think critically about how could somebody respond to this other than just challenging my statistical evidence. Once we've established the unspoken value of, in this case, Ellen Ruppelshell, where she says the only benefit to going to college is what it does for your wallet and your lifetime earning potential, then we can start to think about who might hold a different value, and are their voices present at all in this argument? For example, she doesn't speak to one single college admissions counselor. She doesn't speak to one single college professor. She doesn't speak to one high school guidance counselor. She doesn't talk to anybody who might realistically be able to say, you know what, college is about more than just earning money in the future. And I guess if we want to get technical, Ellen Ruppelshell is herself a college professor. So maybe she did speak to a college professor, but still that's a sample size of one. And that's not very persuasive. And now we are in the one remaining large box of the square, which is outcomes. And here you want to kind of think through. This is not necessarily going to be something you can pull evidence from the text, but you want to think through what are the consequences, what are the implications. If we take Ellen Ruppelshell at her word that the only reason to go to college is to make a lot of money, and for a lot of people making a lot of money isn't going to happen, so they shouldn't bother going to college. If we take her at her word, if we take this seriously and we change the way the world works based on her argument, what will the outcomes be? How will the world be different? There are some kinds of arguments where this question is more important than others. Like if you're reading an argument about global warming and climate change, obviously the outcomes, the consequences, the implications of what is being said could have a huge impact, literally a global impact on what is happening. If you're in a conversation with somebody about where you should go for dinner tonight, the stakes are really, really kind of small. But if we take Ellen Ruppelshell here at her word that college is not worth it for many people who are going to college, then fewer people go to college. And maybe that's okay. But if fewer people are going to college, what does that do for the people who do go to college? And you can start to think about, okay, well, the people that she's telling not to go to college are the people who started out poor, the people who are minorities. Those are the ones who aren't going to see the kind of benefit that a white middle-class person, like my daughters, she says, the poor and minorities are not going to see the same kind of economic benefit from going to college. So now all of a sudden, we have created a system where middle-class white kids grow up and go to college and benefit financially from it, and lower income or minority kids don't. How is that going to change the world? How is that going to affect the United States? How is this going to affect your own life? How is this going to affect the life of those around you in your high school? How is this going to affect, I don't know, the availability of doctors in the future, or the availability of lawyers, of teachers in the future? There are so many ways that you could begin to play out the outcomes or the implications of her suggestion here that we just send fewer people to college. And that brings us around to the box in the middle of our Sumos graphic organizer, which is the so what. This is where you say, and all of this makes me feel this. All of this makes me believe this. All of this makes me want to state this claim. Now, I've already kind of tipped my hand in so many ways about how I feel, that I think she is missing one of the great benefits of going to college, which is that you become a better person. You become smarter. You discover things about yourself that you were never going to learn. You get to meet new people and exciting friends who can be with you and be your friends for the rest. I met my wife at college. So there are many reasons to go to college besides just the financial benefit. On the other hand, you, presumably a high school student, you are thinking about, oh man, do you know how many shoes I could buy if I had a college degree? I'm possibly simplifying, but you might have a different opinion than me. You might agree with her, or you might have some third opinion that's somewhere between what she says and what I say. The whole point of this Sumos exercise is to lead you to that, so that when your teacher says, hey, here's an argument, I would like you to respond to it, please. By the time you get done with this second reading, by the time you get done with this close reading strategy, your argument is like right there. You are ready to respond. And I can't think of any graphic organizer or any simple close reading strategy that does this better than Sumos does. And I highly encourage you to keep this one in your pocket for, I mean, not literally, you don't have to print out a bunch of them and keep it in your pocket. I mean, you could, but at least you can remember the word Sumos, right? So that when you are in a class and somebody says, here's the thing, respond to it, you are ready to go. You give it a quick read to get the gist. Then you give it the second read where you're looking for, here's what the author says, here's her evidence, here's the unspoken assumption that she leaves out, here's the voices and the ideas that are completely missing from it, here's the outcomes, that what will potentially happen if we listen to her, and this is how that makes me feel. This graphic organizer takes you through that entire process and you will be ready to go. That's about it. I do want to clarify. I don't know if it came through in that last segment, but you know, it is okay to agree with a text. When your teacher says, here's the thing, I'd like you to respond to it. You don't have to say, oh man, this person is so wrong, and you don't have to do that. Sometimes that is what your teacher is hoping for, and sometimes it might be the best response, but it is not a required response. When you get around to the so what, your so what could be, so the world would be such a better place if we did this. Either way, whether you're going to end up agreeing with or disagreeing with what an author says, going through this process. And I know parts of it are really tricky, the unsaid part, the warrant part, the values, the unspoken assumptions part of it. That can be really tricky, and it's not something that you're going to get right away the first couple of times you try Sumo. So, you know, it's just really something you could be practicing with before you get to the point where a teacher hands you something and says, I'd like you to respond to this, and it's 700,000% of your grade. Because if you wait until that point, then you could be struggling with it. But you know what? You're reading your sports articles on the interwebs, or you're looking at your fashion magazines, or I don't know what it is that teenagers do these days. Your crazy uncle says something on Facebook. You don't walk through Sumos with that thing, that your crazy uncle on Facebook, and think about, okay, if I were going to respond to my, because we don't respond to our crazy uncle on Facebook. I mean, he's the crazy uncle. But if I were going to respond, how would I do that? What has he put into his argument that has led me around to my own belief about this topic? Just be thinking in this way so that when it does happen to you at school, you are ready to go. Anyway, that is actually just about it for the informational text graphic organizers here in the close reading section of Bullock's Rules for Writing. There are some more literary text ones coming up, so stick around for those. I will see you for the next one.